Hello to everybody joining us on Zoom. Thank you, Maddie, for texting me. I was on the wrong Zoom link, so I do apologize. We just started a couple minutes ago because we had some actual audio issues here. What we're doing is we are reading on page 82. I've asked everybody to read page 82 and to start working on the guiding questions on 83. So we're going to take about 3-4 minutes and then we'll come back together. Hope you guys are all doing well.
Testing.
Oh, that's good. That sounds good. No. I really appreciate it.
It's really awesome.
We will take another 2 minutes. All right, so I think we will start our discussion. I love that there's a lot of discussion going on, and Keva and Pava now will see are both topics you could talk for hours about. So if we are working on Keva, for, you know, as it says from this text, what words would you describe Keva prayer? You can just, whatever comes to your mind. What is Keva prayer for you?
Repetition.
Repetition. What else? Great. Traditional. I heard somebody say structure.
Reliable.
Nice word, reliable. Good job, Patty. It's good to give credit. It's good to give credit. Repetition, routine, traditional, structure, reliable. And say again. Great, habitual. These are all great.
Predictable.
Predictable.
When you hear Eleno, you know you're almost stuck.
Yeah, you know it, right? Shema, instinctively cover your eyes. Amida, you know you stand. It's like, it's so interesting because what I've noticed is, so there's the traditional Shema that we say where you cover your eyes. But the way the Shabbat service goes, there's also other times where like the first line of Shema is recited a couple times in different contexts. And the younger kids don't know it. And as soon as they hear Shema, they cover it. And I'm thinking, no, but I'm glad you know what to do, even though you don't have to do it each time. But it is, it's just instinctual. They know Shema, cover my eyes. It's cute. So these are all great words. The predictable, habitual, repetition, routine, traditional, structure, reliable. Perfect ways that I would describe Keva. So what's the value of this type of prayer? And what are the challenges, do you think? And this type of prayer can exist not just in Judaism, right? Like this idea of fixed text prayer. That's the other word I would write, like fixed. What are like the positives? What are the challenges? Yeah.
Challenges, I think, is learning it to start with and reading it, but then it seems like once you know it, it's kind of with you, and it's just like reactive.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that.
To add what she said, at some point it can become thoughtless.
Yes,
You're just kind of automatically going through the motions, and you're not even thinking about what you're saying.
absolutely. Yep.
I think it's familiar. Like if you go to another conservative synagogue,
Yep.
you pretty much know what to expect because it's, you know, similar.
Right. The tunes may be different, but the text is going to be the same. Absolutely.
It's inflexible.
Inflexible. So is that a good thing or is that a challenge to it?
Could be both.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a sense of togetherness with everyone else doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Like kind of community, everybody's reading the same exact thing, same exact words. Any other, yeah.
I think for me, it's a learned method to reach my spirituality.
Nice. Yes.
I guess the thing we talked about is sometimes you don't really know where to start, and it's easy to start.
There's something like very nice about structure and routine, right? Because you don't always know where to start, may not always know what to do, but if it's in front of you, it's fixed, you don't kind of have to think. But then not thinking, as David said, could become like this thoughtless where you're just there, you're saying it, it means nothing to you. And I think those are some of the positive things and some of the challenges that exist with Keva. It's the nice part is that, you know, if you don't know, if you want to pray, but you don't know what to say, that's fine. It's all written down for you, right? You don't have to think in that way, which is sometimes good because sometimes we don't know. We might be feeling things, but we don't exactly have the words. And Keva, the fixed text, provides that, right? Without a fixed text, we wouldn't really have a siddur, the prayer book. We wouldn't have like a communal service where we all know, turn to the same page, where we're going to recite the same prayers, being able to go into a synagogue really in any country. The words are the same, melodies are different, you know, maybe some traditional customs different, but the words, the fixed text. Great. Okay. So now let us turn to page 84. We can read this aloud together, and then I'll give you a couple of minutes also to kind of answer the questions on your own, or to even talk to the people who are in your group to kind of debrief. Do we have any readers? So for those of you on Zoom, we are on page 84. We're going to move over now that we've talked about a little bit about Keva. We're going to get back to it. We're going to move to the other side now. Kavana. Okay, Kavana. we have any readers for page 84? Anybody? Yes, please.
There was a young shepherd who was unable to recite the Hebrew prayers. The only way in which he worshiped was, Master of the world, you well know that if you had cattle and gave them to me to tend, though I take wages for tending from all others, from you I would take nothing because I love you.
One more line.
One day, a learned man passing by heard the shepherd pronounce his offer and shouted at him.
Do you have another reader? Julie? Yeah, okay.
Oh, do not pray that way. So the shepherd asked him, how then should I pray? So the learned man taught him all of the blessings in order, the recitation of the Shema and the Amidah, so that from that point forward, the shepherd would not pray the way that he used to.
One more paragraph.
But after the learned man left, the shepherd forgot all that he had been taught, all that had been taught him, and did not pray. And he was even afraid to say what he had been accustomed to say, because the learned man had told him not to. One night the learned man had a dream, and in it he heard a voice. If you do not tell the shepherd to say what he was accustomed to say before you came to him, know that misfortune will overtake you, for you have robbed me of one of my most precious blessings.
One more reader? Finish up? Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
At once the learned man went to the shepherd and said to him, what prayer are you now making? The shepherd answered, none, for I have forgotten what you have taught me, and you forbade me to say if you had cattle. Then the learned man told him what he had dreamed and said, please say what you used to say. Behold, there is a person who had neither Torah nor words. He only had it in his heart to do good, and this was esteemed in heaven. The compassionate one desires the heart.
Thank you. All right, so let's take a couple minutes like we did from the other one. If you want to talk to your chavruta, your partner, you can, or if you want to just answer individually these couple questions. We'll take like 4 or 5 minutes and do that.
Evaluate your heart as well.
I'm not sure.
Values are just. I was gonna say, you have to be grateful. Put in your own values. I feel like. So you don't need to stop. Right. Right.
It's easy, it's accessible. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I would say a lot about us.
It's a challenge.
There's a better word for it, but you know, like, it's,
Yeah.
so their prayers are to be passed out.
Yes.
They show you personal.
You love God and, right. Right.
I mean, a lot of the prayer is what you make anyway. On, right? It's an interesting story. So saying your own prayer. Seemingly endless amount of prayers. And she was poisoning him, she was announcing formula. You don't want to be the wrong people. You do feel a little paralyzed, you know? Yeah. You don't know what you're doing. It's very stressful.
We'll take like one more minute to finish up and then we'll come back together.
I had a friend. Actually, very high structure. Standing there. He went there to see whenever he's new. Overall.
All right, everyone. So let's come together and let's talk about kavanah. Kavanah, opposite from kava. What do you think it means, right? What words would you use now to describe kavanah? What was the second one?
Freestyle individual.
Great. Freestyle, individual. What are other words?
Unstructured,
Great.
Creative.
Unstructured, creative, emotional,
Unique.
self-serving,
ooh, nice,
From the heart,
great,
in the moment.
and from the heart. These are all great. I think these all really are wonderful descriptions of kavanah. So now, along the same kinds of lines, what's the value of kavanah prayer and what are the challenges of this type of prayer? These are all like, your personal opinions, just how you're feeling.
The values that there's really no right or wrong way to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it comes from your own individual heart. Buddy?
well, Patty and I just spoke also that if you're ever at a loss for words, sometimes you're unable to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And this allows you to, if you want, you can go back to Keva
Mm-hmm.
if you get stuck on Kavanah and the other way around also.
So it's kind of good to have both.
Locked in to one thing.
Absolutely. I mean, in a way, this is kind of like, because it comes from your heart, it's like your own authentic, individual, unique voice speaking to God. What are other things? Reasons it's good, reasons it's challenging.
You can personalize and address maybe in the prayer, something that like a more structured prayer, like say the Amida, maybe you feel doesn't cover. Yeah, more personalized.
Absolutely. I mean, we all have our own individual life experiences, and the text can't always address things that we're experiencing in life. That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, you pray for specific things.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. You can't cover it all in the text, right? Absolutely. Any other thoughts on it?
We talked about like the challenge could be you might not know where to start or even how to initiate that conversation with God and through prayer on your own without a structure.
Yes, and one of the things with that is, if we only had kavanah and you didn't know what words to use, or you waited till you found the words, you might never pray, which is kind of the beauty. So if this isn't hitting you in the moment, you have this, but if this feels too rigid, you can always go back to this. Yes.
I was thinking that there's a fine line between prayer and just a conversation with God. Where's the line? What makes a prayer or just talking to God.
So I'm gonna ask you that, yeah, love that question. Is there a difference though? Is there a difference between prayer and talking to God? And if there is, what is it?
Maybe a certain degree of respect and deference. I don't know, if you have a conversation with somebody, it might be casual, and
Hmm,
with God, you should ought to have some kind of respect.
great, thank you.
Well, like in synagogue, I'm either like praying to God or, asking God or thanking God. And if I just have a conversation with God, I just, whatever I wanted to say, and it's generally not a temple. A temple is prayer.
Right. I mean, I don't think there are any real distinctions. I mean, I think it's just anytime you talk to God could be prayer, but maybe some people might think it's only prayer if I'm thanking God or asking God for something, but it's really whatever it means to you. Anytime you converse with God could be prayer. Absolutely. There's no hard, line.
So it's all kavanah acceptable to God.
Yes. So that's the beauty, right? The way that Jewish prayer is, kava is kind of this starting point, but makes room for kavanah and makes room for these moments. So even in our fixed text, for example, in the Amidah, which is our standing prayer, which is where you are having a conversation with God, in that conversation there's two places in it. Well, there's actually a few places. There's one place where we ask to heal other people. So that's like your own personal time. You can add in people's names who you want to pray for. Other people say there's a paragraph which is called Shema Kolenu, which is basically saying, God, please listen to me. A lot of people will read that, and before they get to like the blessing part, they'll add in their own spontaneous prayer. And then again, at the very end of the Amidah, you might see somebody who's finished the actual Siddur reading, and they might hold it closed, and they're still standing there for a few minutes before they sit down, because they might be engaging in this personal prayer with God. So within our text, there's room for both.
Well, it's funny because I was just saying before that when the rabbi announces, everyone stand for the Amida, the words are on page, or say the words from your heart.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because the words in there may not be calling to you in that day. And like even when I'm in religious school, I'll say the words in the Hebrew, say the words in the English, or the words in your heart. Because if you don't know the Hebrew, you're saying something, but it's not really meaningful. So it's great that you're saying it, but if you want to know what you're saying, then you might want to read the English. Absolutely. So the beauty, I think, of Judaism is it makes room for both types. And yes, both types are completely acceptable to God, because God doesn't care what language you pray to God in, as long as you pray to God. Okay, so we're gonna go on a little walk. We're gonna go on a little adventure into the sanctuary. So what we're gonna do in the sanctuary is we're moving on to now this part about, what is in the synagogue. So we're gonna go in the synagogue, and I'm gonna ask you to walk around kind of free range. I opened up the, people call it the garage cover, the ark, right? There's usually a cover on it. Walk around, if you've never been here, go through the pews, see what's in the pews. If you want to walk up into the bima, if you've never seen what's on the rabbi's podium, what is on the cantor's podium, take a look around at everything. And your only assignment is to come back with one question. So I will take you into the sanctuary with me, but obviously you're not going to be able to, if you're on Zoom, to actually explore the sanctuary. And I will take you with me.
Ladies.
Okay.
We do?
Free range, and then you can tell the rabbi and the cantor, all their secrets. If you've never looked at the stained glass windows, although it's dark, so you may not get the best view of them right now, look up into the balcony. You may have never known there was a balcony here. See, there you go. It's a whole different view from over here. It does. And also, let me put this down. You've never been that close to see inside. Various houses on Torah, actually, take a look at them. What's the significance of each store? Yeah. Great question. So ask that. Yeah, great question. Okay. Yes, they do. And yeah, I know you can't read, but the things tell you what. So ask that question. I didn't realize these are all questions. Good job. And do they all mean something different? No, don't. Okay. We don't mean something different. There's a reason for where they're all there. Okay. Yeah. Good questions. I love it. All right, we'll take
Which one did you want?
the drawer. Take another like 2-3 minutes.
That was actually gonna be my question, but now I'm gonna know the answer.
Virtual objects. See it.
M&Ms, yep.
Yes.
Never know when you're gonna need M&Ms. So I don't want to snoop too much.
Oh, okay. Really?
But, oh, I just realized I'm on the camera.
So I can tell we have a lot of awesome questions. So why don't we, do you want to continue here or do you want to go back there? We can sit here if you want or go back to the classroom, whatever you prefer.
Fine either way.
All right, so why don't we sit maybe just, why don't we sit down here for a little bit? I'll leave this open. So Bunny, Beth, Karen, Harry, we're gonna just stay here for a little bit. You're welcome to sit there. We're just gonna stay here for a little bit. Okay. All right, I'm gonna take my friends on Zoom with me. Okay. Questions. I've heard a lot of awesome questions. Okay, yes, Megan.
Is there a specific purpose for each of the Torahs?
Okay, so it's a great question. So obviously we know every Torah has the same exact words in it. But as you know, like each week we read a different parsha, a different story. And like on Rosh Chodesh, on when it's the new Jewish month, we read a certain Torah portion. So what it is Torahs are set to different places. So this one says Shabbat. So every week we know this Torah has to come out on Shabbat and it's set to the correct parsha. When it's Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, we take out 2 Torahs. So the Shabbat Torah comes out, and this one, which says Rosh Chodesh, because it's already set to the parsha. Some of the ones on top are just wherever they are. But sometimes you'll have one set, right now it's not labeled, but I know one is set for like Hanukkah, when we start parsha on Hanukkah. These are just set, the others are just set in the middle, so that if we need them, it's easy to go either way. But so you usually have one for Shabbat, one for Rosh Chodesh, always, so you can easily take them out and know where you are.
So the content is the same in all of them, and they're just set to different positions?
Content is the same in all of them. It's the 5 books of the Torah. We're just setting it to a different place because if we keep them all in the beginning of Bereshit, and we need to read Rosh Chodesh, which comes all the way in Numbers, we're going to be standing there winding the Torah. So Rabbi Cantor makes sure that it's set exactly where it needs to be for Shabbat each week. And then one is always set to Rosh Chodesh, so we can take it out, we read it, and put it right back. But any of them could be set for the Shabbat or for Rosh Chodesh.
What's the crown?
So the crown. So there are a lot of, so the Torah is like our guest of honor on Shabbat, which is why there's, so we just went back to the procession recently. That's why everybody rises when the Torah comes out. There's a bunch of prayers that are sung. Basically the Torah comes and it greets everybody. Everybody greets the Torah. And then we come back to the Torah is the guest of honor. So the guest of honor is all dressed up, basically, right? So if you notice, like Torah's, the fabric is really like, it's like velvety fabric. They're usually really rich in color, kind of like a king would wear like a robe. And then these are like they're adornments. It's all ways to adorn the Torah, right? So you have crowns which are put on, and then you have these which are the breastplates, which also is just like a form of embellishment. A lot of them have the 12 tribes written on them, 12 tribes of Israel written on them. It doesn't matter what the breastplate looks like, but a lot of Torahs have that, again, to dress it up, and along with the crown. Again, none of this is necessary, but it just adds kind of to the pomp and circumstance in a way. And the crown is the same as well. That crown actually can fit on one Torah. There's 2 inserts, but we just keep it up there.
Are they made out of specific material?
They're all silver, all made out of silver.
And how long does it take away? On average?
It takes a very long time. It all depends on the sofer, which is the scribe. Usually takes, it's at least a year, but if a scribe makes a mistake or a scribe writes a little slower, it can take more than a year. It just really depends. It's painstaking work. It's, calligraphy, you've got to make sure every letter, you got to make sure that everything also fits, because in the Torah, all the columns are identical. They're all the same exact width, same exact spacing, same exact width. So in the Torah, we'll look at the Torah one week. You'll have letters that are exaggerated, like a lamed is like exaggerated, so it fits the end of the line because it all has to fit in those columns. Yes?
Do Torah scrolls generally come from somewhere specific? Are they produced somewhere or?
No, wherever a scribe lives. Like the scribe, you purchase it from like the scribe, right? But it doesn't, now there are some Torahs, so in the chapel, we have one Torah that is from the time, like during the Holocaust. So there are a lot of Torahs that people, were able to save. So it's a damaged Torah, so we don't ever use it, but we keep it and we bring it out in the parade of Torahs on Yom Kippur. Because Yom Kippur is the one time all the Torahs are dressed in white and you bring them all out. And so we bring that Torah out as well, but we don't read from it. Great question. Yeah. It is one of the commandments. I don't think it's one of the commandments that most people fulfill, but to that extent, what some synagogues will do is they will have a a synagogue Torah written for the synagogue, and the scribe will come, and you, along with the scribe, will write a letter. And in that case, you have helped to write a Torah. So that is like the way that people do that, so that you can feel like you've been part of that process. It's a great question, though. Any other questions about anything you saw here?
Is there, I think I counted 10. Is there a reason there's 10, or is that just how many?
No, we're just blessed with a lot of Torahs. There's 10 in here, and I think there are, in the chapel, there's 2 in addition to the Holocaust Torah. So no, we're just blessed. Some congregations that may only have like 2 Torahs, some may have 20 Torahs. There's not a significance, it's just kind of, the adornment that you hear the Torah coming, you hear the king coming, it's just like more, to make it special. And it does makes it more special, Any other thoughts about anything up here? Does everybody know what everything up here is? Questions? Okay, I'm going to close this. All right, let me just put the garage door down so I don't forget. And I'll just leave it. All right, so let's move. Yeah, do you have a question or? Yeah, go ahead.
It's tiny.
Yes.
It's this Torah commentary. What's the difference between this and like how much?
Yes, so this is Torah commentary, which is also the Chumash. It's the same thing, exactly. Torah and commentary, so when you go through this, it's right to left like Hebrew. The Parsha, each week the story is up here in Hebrew and English, and all down here is the commentary. Just like in the Chumash with the commentary at the bottom, and it even tells you certain verses the commentary is related to. And in the beginning of each Parsha, there's also kind of like a summary. And the way this works is, so this is in Genesis and Lech Lecha. When you get to the end, the Haftorah, the book that comes from prophets, is right afterwards. And it kind of gives you, sometimes the connection, as we talked about between Torah and Haftorah, is tight, and sometimes it's kind of loosely connected. But if you read this, it'll tell you what the connection between the story from the Torah and the book of prophets is. Great question. Yeah.
So they're all Torah scrolls up there. Where's the Megillot?
So the Megillot are not housed in here. That's just in the rabbi's office or in like just a locked closet.
Okay.
Great question.
So what is the Megillah?
Megillah is the scroll. So like on Purim, we read Megillah Esther, the scroll of Esther, and it has, like Torah has 2 Aksei Chaim, the 2 dowels. Megillah is one of that. So Megillah scroll, and there are 5 scrolls. 5 scrolls in the third book of the Tanakh, in the book of Ketuvim, the scroll of Ruth, Esther, and like those are the scrolls. But only the book of Esther is actually written on the scroll, just so you know. The others are actually not written. They're called Megillot, but they're not written on a Megillah. Only Esther is written that way. I'm not sure why, but only Esther. It's a little trivia fact if anybody asks you.
I was going to ask about that. Thank you for answering.
There you go. I knew it. I just knew it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
You said it's only one scroll, like one dowel?
Yes.
How do you use it?
So it's, I don't have it here, but you hold the one and you open it, and as you finish each chapter, so the Torah, you keep winding. This, you fold each chapter onto itself. So by the end, it's like folded like a wave. And like when you were younger, if you ever made fans of paper, you fold it in, up and back. That's what you do with the Megillah until the end, and then you just wind it up. Great question. Yeah.
What's that scroll on the?
Oh, this one. Okay. So this is from our religious school. So we just had a celebration for the 4th grade class, the Dalit class, where we presented them all with their dates for their bar and bat mitzvah in 3 years. So this is, I don't know who commissioned this or whatever, but this was a few years ago. It's an illustrated Torah. So each portion is just an illustration, and it kind of talks about it a little. There is another one in a glass case outside the sanctuary which is wound every week. You may not have noticed it, but it's on the wall. So what we did is we gave them each, like little Smarties. So we put 2 Smarties together and we put around it like Mazel Tov, their name, the Torah portion, the date. We gave it to them and then they came up here. So now you're gonna know what's gonna come for your daughter in a few years. Shh, don't tell her. And then they come up here and they took a picture with us with their parsha. So that's the reason it's over here, because we just did this on Sunday. It was a good question.
Okay, but I have a question about that now.
This one?
No, what you're talking about with their date of their bar mitzvah, but don't the parents like plan that out beforehand? It's not like it's just arbitrarily given to them.
Yes.
They just
In
don't know, is
conjunction
that
with
right?
the Parents, it was revealed to the kids that
Gotcha,
day.
okay.
Yes. You had input. Don't worry. Yeah, totally. It's not like,
I know.
here's your day, and you're like, oh, that's not good for me. No, we ask your input. We ask you which days are good, and we ask you which days are not good. And then based on everything, we ask you for like 2 or 3 choices so that, we can give everybody the first or second choice. Good question now.
Are those Shabbat candles right there?
Yes, so we're already getting ready for Shabbat. So Danny sets it up already, the Shabbat here, the candles are here. And then I don't know if it's already set up. There will be another table here for him with grape juice and then Shabbat morning and grape juice and to make the blessings. We'll get ready midweek ready for Shabbat. Got to get it all ready. Yeah.
What is the piano used?
When?
Yeah.
Piano is used Friday nights.
So
Adam is our
Shabbat.
pianist, and once a month on Shabbat morning, it's called Shabbat Experience.
Okay.
So every Friday night and then one Shabbat morning.
Friday night on Shabbat, it's okay to play piano, or, I mean, obviously it is, but.
It's a whole discussion. We talked about it a little here one
Yeah.
day. It's a whole discussion. They used to use instruments in the time of the temple, and we kind of got away from instruments. We've gone back. Not everybody in Temple Israel is in the same place with music, so we made the accommodation that Friday night we use it. In general, Shabbos morning we don't, but there's once a month where we do. So people know if they're not happy with the piano, they may not come that Shabbos morning, but at least if they come, they'll know there will be music playing. But the idea is that it's not, I've been to some congregations where it's kind of like a concert, where here it's really supposed to be like background assisting the cantor, not the main attraction. Great question though. Great question. Okay, let's move. Oh, wow, it's late. Great questions though. Yeah, no, you're fine, you're fine.
The candle, when Shabbat, do you do the candles before coming?
So,
at home?
so it just depends when Shabbat starts.
Right.
Yes, now based on the time, you would do them at home, right? Because Shabbat is now about 7:15, 7:20. So you would light them because you're not going to get home in time. So yes, you would light them at home, and then when you come home, it's Shabbat. Because
So you leave the candles.
you leave the candles. So like what I do is I have them, in a place where there's nothing near them, and I light them in a disposable aluminum pan. So even God forbid if they fell, they would fall into the pan. So I know not everybody is comfortable leaving. Growing up, it was a whole thing with my dad. Very nervous when we would light candles and go to synagogue, and my mom was like, "It's going to be fine. There's a big aluminum plate," and it always was. But it's a nerve-wracking thing. I get it. Yeah, but you want to light them because by the time you come home, it's already Shabbat, and the candles should be lit. Some people still will go home after Shabbat and light them, but it just depends what you're comfortable doing. But you will notice, so I don't know if you noticed this, but if you come Friday night, during the winter months, when Shabbat is before 6:15, when we have services, our custodian lights them so that they're already lit because we can't light them during services. But starting last week, the cantor will start lighting them because it's not Shabbat yet at 6:15, so she can light them here. So that's just a slight, subtle change that we make depending on the time of the year. Any other questions? You can also ask questions once we get back there. Okay, let's go. Are you guys okay with taking a break today? We're good? Okay. I don't think we're going to finish everything, but that's fine. They were great questions. Okay, let's go back over there. If you need to obviously take a break, please go ahead. Oh, great. Hold on one second. Maddie had a question. Sorry, Maddie, I just saw it. And it is a wonderful question. Hang on. Okay. So Maddie asked about the Ner Tamid. What does the Ner Tamid, what is it for? What does it represent? Okay. The Ner Tamid, do you see up there? So you might need to walk back a little. That's the eternal flame. It is always on. And the idea is, so this is the Aron HaKodesh, the ark, and that God is, resides above the ark, that God's presence is always here. God's presence is always near us, also around the Torah. They also had it from the time of the temple. And so we continue with that, and it is a light that's never extinguished. Great question, Maddie. Thank you. Sorry, I did not see that sooner. Okay, let's move to, we'll go back to the social hall. So as it turns out, a lot of the questions actually address some of the things that we were going to talk about over here. So that was great that we touched on a lot of those things. All right, so they were awesome questions. So the only couple things we didn't really touch on was like head coverings or kippah, right? These are kippot that we offer. People bring their own kippot. Some women prefer instead to wear these, which usually fold in half and you put it in half with a clip. Some women choose this kippah, this kind of kippah. Some women will wear a headband. People have all different types of things that they decide. It's really just personal preference. If you want to take a look at that, here, I'll put some on this side too. If you want to just pass these around.
Rabbi,
Yes.
growing up, we were taught that a woman doesn't put a head covering on until she's married. And then we came here, that was actually a huge issue for my daughter, when she was little, to have to wear something on her head.
So yes, so that was the way I grew up also. In a more traditional setting, it is women don't cover their hair until they are married. But it has become in the conservative movement to make it egalitarian that boys and girls cover their hair. But you are correct.
When women go up on the
Bima.
they're supposed to wear a head covering for when they, especially if they have an aliyah.
Yes.
They're gonna touch the Torah.
So yeah, if a woman is sitting in the congregation without her head covered, no one will say anything. But if you were going to the bima, you need a head covering. And this is kind of like as egalitarian, the movement has come and shifted in the conservative movement. That is a thing. Some synagogues will require all women to wear a head covering in the synagogue. Some people are okay with it, but only when they have to go up on the bima, they have to wear it. Kind of is, evolving process and different in different synagogues. Okay, so that is the head covering. So if you want to pass those around so everybody can just, these are not the nicer of the kippot. They're kind of like the disposal ones, but they do the job. Okay, so do we know what this is? Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to put one over here for this crew. Put a talit over. Oops. I gotta drop something. Put it over here. Give you a talit.
No, I have my own thing.
And I'll give you a talit. And let me just grab one for myself. Okay, so there are different parts of the talit. So we are commanded in Parshat Lech Lecha, which is in the book of Shemot, to put tzitzit fringes on a four-cornered garment. We don't wear four-cornered garments, so we put it on the talit. So this part of the talit is called the atara. Let me erase a little bit of this, just so you see these words. All right, so this is the atara. And it's kind of a fancier part of the Torah. Some people will have this made out of silver, this part, like a silver overlay. And in the middle, it says the blessing that you recite before you put on a talit. So the way that you put on a talit, right, you kiss the ends of each atara, you kiss this side, you kiss this side, then you recite the blessing. And then you kind of put it on like, you know how you used to like put on a winter jacket like that? I mean, it's kind of like that. Kind of grab this side and you do that little bit of a flip. And you put the talit on and it basically rests on your shoulders. The atara rests, you know, at the base of your head. Okay, so now the question is, what is on the end of the talit? Anybody know what these are? Tzitzit. Why do we have tzitzit on them? For the mitzvot. So the idea is when, so for example, I'll put this on. So when you recite, if you're sitting in services, coming apart, it's all good. All good, okay. When you're sitting in services, so this is only in the morning we do this. We wear talit in the morning. And right before the Shema, in the paragraph before the Shema, if you're ever here on Saturday morning, you'll hear the rabbi say, now is the time where we gather our tzitzit. So we take all of them in our hand together and we hold them and we recite the Shema. Now, the idea is basically that within the tzitzit is a reminder to us of the 613 mitzvot. So how do we get to that? Okay. So there is this fun thing in Hebrew. If you like math, it's fun. If you don't, it's probably not fun. I think it's fun. It's called gematria. That's not right. Hold on. Gematria. And this is where every letter in Hebrew is assigned a number. Okay, so I'll just give you the basic, a couple of them, right? So Aleph is 1, a bet or an avet together, the same letter is 2. Gimel is 3. This goes up to Yud, the 10th letter, which is 10. Then it jumps, Kaf is 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400. All right, you don't have to know all the numbers, but this is how we do math. So the word tzitzit in Hebrew is tzadi, Yud, Tzadi, Yud, Taf, the last letter of the alphabet. So tzitzit is 90. A Yud is 10. And Taf is 400. So for our math wizards, how much is that? It's not 613.
Oh, no, not.
So you're not a math wizard? It's okay. So this is 600. Okay, so but we have to get to 613 somehow, right? So this is where like rabbis play around a lot and they come up like with wedding talks. They'll like take your Hebrew names or all these different things to make some cute little thing. And it's a lot of fun, to be honest. So this is 600, but we need to reach 613 because what is 613? Number of mitzvot. Okay. So each side of the tzitzit has 8 strings. So we just said, we just take the number 8 for the number of strings for each side. And there are 5 knots. There's a lot of knots in between, but there's 5 sections of knots in each one. So we added 6, 8, and 5, and this is a grand total of 613. So that is why within the talit, it is a reminder, we hold it together so we are remembering all the mitzvot. Yes.
There's 613 fringes on the top.
No. Again, this is just kind of, you know.
I thought that might be.
No. 600 is the numerical value of tzitzit.
Okay, but the number of fringes has nothing to do with it.
So
Is there? I thought I heard there were 613 fringes on the talit.
there's not 613 fringes. No. There's 8, but there is 8 strings on each side, 5 clusters of knots, and 26 wrappings on each side.
And
But
then
then,
what about the talit that, have all the,
So you're between.
not the knots, they have, my dad's always been picked, had all the strings, had like a ton of strings.
these,
Yeah, but they were straight, they weren't knots. You know what I'm
It's
talking about?
only the corner.
No.
They have to know.
Fringes, it had tons, it didn't have those, it had tons of fringes, like. tons of
Yeah,
fringes.
longer than.
but these,
Yeah, long.
these are just, this is just decorative.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Yeah.
the only part that is tzitzit are the knotted ends, and this is just decoration.
Right.
Yeah. So if you want to pass the talit, if everyone wants to take a look at it,
What's the difference between the tzitzit here and what some people in Orthodox mean,
Underneath, yeah, so what you're referring to is a talit katan, a small talit. Traditional conservative men wear it and Orthodox men and like little boys. So it's basically an undershirt that has tzitzit hanging off them. And the idea is that you shouldn't only be wearing a talit just at the time of prayer, but you should always be thinking of the 613 weeks old. So they wear that so that all day they are thinking, and this tzitzit are surrounding them. Kind of like you're wearing a head covering, right? The idea that God is above you, you're always thinking of God. God should be, with you in all your actions and your thoughts and everything. Great question. But you don't see a lot of those today. You see that mostly in the Orthodox community, maybe some very like observant conservative Jews. So we're
I'm sure. Why is a holy tray the only evening that?
You wear it in the evening because the whole idea there is that we are all coming to God. First of all, you're supposed to wear white that evening. We haven't talked about Yom Kippur yet.
No, not yet.
Can you hold that until we talk about it? Can you write down the question though so you don't forget? Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Is the commandment for the tzitzis, is that for men or for women or for both?
So originally it was for men, but there are women who I've seen who will wear like the talit katan. Yeah. So the women have taken on the mitzvah as well. Great question. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about tefillin and like why we wear it only during weekdays?
Oh, I forgot to bring my tefillin. Yes, okay, yes. So do you know what tefillin are? Have you seen them? So it is a box that you wear in the middle of your head. I totally forgot, I apologize. That has leather straps that come here. And there's a box that you wear over here and you wind it around your arm and around your hands. I should make that, let me just write a note to myself to bring that in for next, in 2 weeks actually. So that you can see it. So contained within the tefillin, this is called tefillin shel rosh on your head, and tefillin shel yad for your arm. And within it is the commandment to wear tefillin. So there's 3 parts to it that are all about wearing tefillin, wearing talit. So actually, if you, hold on, let me show you. It is all the parts that come from the Torah that talk about the Shema that are in the tefillin shel rosh and tefillin shel yad. Give me 1 second.
I have a picture of it just been wrapped up. Like that's exactly.
Oh, you have a picture of your own tefillin?
It's my son got passed out. It's my.
Oh, beautiful.
grandfather.
Oh, beautiful.
At least I think, that's what they're.
Has everyone seen tefillin or?
So, let's see this if you want.
That would be great, Beth, thank you. I'm so sorry. So basically, I'll just read you the English of the first paragraph of the Shema, right? Which is from the book of Deuteronomy, and this is what is contained within the tefillin, right? You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, your soul, your might. The words I command you to this day shall be taken on your heart. Teach them against your children when you're, lying down, when you're sitting at home, when you're walking, when you rise up. And then it says, bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes, right? And also it says, inscribe them in your doorpost, because also the Shema is in the mezuzah. So that's one place it says it. And then it says it again in this second, because there's 3 paragraphs of the Shema. In the second paragraph of the Shema from the book of Deuteronomy, it says, therefore impress these words of mine upon your heart, upon your soul, and it says, bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes. And when you read those words, you're supposed to touch your tefillin shel rosh, you kiss it, touch your tefillin shel yad, kiss it. And then in the 3rd paragraph of the Shema is from the book of Numbers, and it tells you, and this is where if you'll ever see people, and this is when they'll be kissing their tzitzit, because it talks 3 times about the tzitzit. So that's what's contained in the tefillin. Great, and that is all about the Shema, which is the oneness, proclaiming that there's one God. Great, thank you so much for that question.
And so why do you only wear those on weekdays and not on Shabbat?
So the idea is that Shabbat is something special that already signals the presence of God. We don't need a reminder of God. We have Shabbat, which was given to us from God. During the week, we need something to connect us, and that's why we wear the tefillin. So like on a holiday, even if it's during the week, on a holiday, you also don't wear the tefillin because the holiday is what reminds us of God. It's like a gift to us from God. So that's why during the week we put on the tefillin. So it's something, connecting us to God in that way. It's like a reminder of God, another reminder of God that we don't need on other special occasions. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Couple what questions? Yes.
First is, I've seen clip-on CC and with it.
Really?
Yeah, I have.
I've never seen that.
And, if you had a four-corner garment, like a shawl or something, and you put them on, would it be a fair shawl, or do you still need to have the headpiece?
So the idea, I've never seen that, but I don't think that would be kosher because the idea is that the tzitzit are tied into the garment and not attached to it. I've never seen that. So interesting. They're actually with the fringe. I've never seen that. But yeah, I don't think so because the idea, like I said, is that it's into the garment, tied into it. So it's a part of it and not removable.
And my second question is, why do you not have a thread of blue?
Okay, so the threaded blue, it does talk about in the Torah, like putting a thread of blue in it. For many, many years, the blue, I can't remember where that blue comes from, cobalt or snails. They could not find that blue. And so, because it's not like a halacha thing, it's not like you have to have it or it's invalid, it's just an enhancement. So a lot of newer, you can buy now a lot of talitot with a blue string threaded through it.
I thought that was a commandment, and to tie a blue string on the CC.
But if you can't find it and it's not accessible, it doesn't mean it's invalid, right? But now that we have found it, so you'll have people that will redo their tzitzit with that blue now included in it. It's really beautiful. It's like a cobalt blue, really beautiful color. Really beautiful. I remember when I was in Israel, they showed us like where, like, I guess it was a snail. Is it a snail, not a plant? Where it came from. It's very beautiful.
I only know this because my mother wove towels.
Oh, it's
And so she would buy
it's called techelet, so you know.
to buy, the strings, and so she would knot them and everything, and she wanted to replace the one she made for me with one blue, and I stupidly said, no, you don't have to bother. And
It's
now that she's
beautiful.
not here anymore, I wish I had said yes.
Oh, it is really beautiful.
It's all right.
It's actually in our 5th grade class, they do a unit on life cycle and they just created their family education program. They just created a class talit. So the kids all learned to tie the tzitzit and then their parents came and they all tied them as their class family education program. So it was very cool. They all learned that. Yes.
I have two questions too. Is there a certain prayer you're supposed to say if you were to drop the door or a tweet?
Great question. So there's nothing to say. You kiss the talit. You kiss the siddur. It's like just as a sign of that's a holy object. With a talit, you don't kiss it. You just pick it up. Also kippah. Most people don't. Some people you'll see them kiss it just because it's an idea that there's a holiness ascribed to it.
Okay.
Great questions.
And now on this little diagram.
Yep. On page 87, the diagram.
I just had a question because they're showing the cancer on the left side. But is there a reason why, or is it just like a personal preference with side?
Yeah, so I also, when I saw that, I was like, that's interesting. So I've never actually seen where like cantors on one side, the rabbis in the middle. If you have a synagogue where there is just a rabbi cantor, there usually will be one pulpit right in the middle. If you have two, it's usually one on each side. I have also seen where you'll have one on each side, cantor and rabbi have a pulpit, and in the middle, you'll have a separate table that is just for Torah reading. But there's no like law to it. It is just, aesthetics, what the congregation wants, absolutely. Very great question. Yes.
I guess along the lines of dropping something.
Yeah.
Drop the Torah.
So They're right. So the idea is that if you drop the Torah, you have to fast for 40 days, 40 morning to evening fasts. However, that's not the way it is done. So we had an incident here a couple months ago where the Torah was dropped on Shabbat morning.
Right.
So and it used to be basically whoever saw it, and whoever was in the congregation were the people that had to fast. But it's obviously a big burden to fast for 40 days, morning to evening. So what congregations do, and what we did, is that we had to put a sign up together, sign up Genius, and people just agreed, like I sent in, yes, I'll fast on that day, I'll fast on that day. So the idea is that you have a lot of members of the community fasting on that day. And then also Rabbi Wallach had, during morning minyan, he did some teaching. During his he does a Thursday morning Jews and Brews class, he devoted that teaching, learning about dropping the Torah. And then at the evening minyan, he did some more teaching on the customs and everything around it. So the idea is you do some teaching, you do some learning together as a community. People sign up to fast and you donate tzedakah, you donate money and everything. Was that your question?
That was my question.
And so the whole idea is so that it's not a burden for just those people who are here, because even if we're not here on Shabbos morning, it's still our community and we're all one community.
Is it a 24-hour fast?
No, sunrise to sunset. Yeah, but 40 days of doing that, probably lose a lot of weight, but it's probably not the healthiest. Just saying, So people fasted that day, sunrise to sunset, and yeah, and that's kind of the way the community comes together and atones for dropping the Torah. And it's also so that it's not just the burden of whoever dropped it, it's our whole community is affected by it. Great question.
It's a good fundraiser.
It's a good fundraiser. It's a good fundraiser. Hopefully it doesn't happen too often. So that is what the money that we did raise, just so you know, those are on this, this side, there's the Torah stand, and then in the middle, there's one, and it's to buy new Torah stands that are more sturdy. Some Torah stands, have a little chain in front to make sure they stay, or they're carved out differently. So yeah. So we will be having new Torah stands at some point.
What's happening?
It fell by itself.
What did you say?
I would have been helpful that day since it fell by itself.
Right, because it wasn't
Yeah.
exactly, it fell forward, Torah went for a ride.
New ones are slanted back a little bit, so the Torah will rest
So it won't.
backwards instead of, so it can't as easily go forward. And there's
Inserts?
a hole, an oval shaped hole, so the handles go in.
Yeah.
So that.
So then it'll have those posts in it, so it won't just slide. Yeah. Look, these did last for lots of years, but there are better ones out there that help safeguard it even more. And it's also a very upsetting thing, right? Aside from all the rituals with it, it's a very upsetting thing when you see, we just talked about how holy the Torah is and special and how decorative we make, the dress of the Torah, and then when the Torah drops, it's just a very strange, experience for everybody. Very upsetting. It's very shocking also. It's very jarring. Because it's not something you see.
Yeah, they're like,
I've never been in synagogue when a Torah's dropped. It's just such a weird thing.
I believe that the stands that they're on are carved from one piece of wood. And they are, they can be stained or whatever, but there's a craft in order to make a Torah stand. It isn't just something that you buy at a furniture store.
That is correct.
There's a lot involved, and that's why they're so expensive.
That's correct.
Really, and we're getting to,
we're getting to the custom made for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have that work
It's
with
out
them.
of one piece of wood that they do other.
Yeah.
In fact, one of our requests is something he had never been asked, which was the slant back.
Mhm.
He was actually a little surprised by that. He goes, but the way it's done, it's fine. Well, we're not taking any chances. We want, it gives,
Well, but
that's what gives
that
visual
Torah
comfort.
doesn't stand straight, it stands at an
It's an angle.
And that could be,
Backwards.
offensive to maybe an Orthodox congregation to do that. But to we're better off keeping the Torah standing
Yes.
rather than
Falling.
taking those.
Okay, so we are running short on time. Couple things I want to go over. So a couple things that also, we won't do here, but if you can make sure to do them at home, because I think they're important. To read page 88, this Kavanah Talking to God with Naomi Levy. If you haven't read it, it's so great. It really explains this whole idea of Kavanah, and how difficult it also is for some people. So I will tell you, when I was in rabbinical school, one of the rotations we have to do is chaplaincy. So I worked in a hospital, and I'm definitely somebody that fixed prayer was like how I grew up, what I knew, and what I was comfortable with. And I was the only Jewish person there. Everybody else was great about coming up with all these spontaneous prayers, and like I was like blown away. And then it was like came to me, and I was like, I don't know what to say, because it's a skill. It's a skill that I just didn't have. I found it very awkward because, again, for me, like I really liked the fixed prayer, and then in the places that I need to, I had my own personal prayer. But we were going into like hospital rooms with people, and you were praying, with them and on their behalf. And I don't remember who, but I went to somebody and I was like, could you give me some words to say? And I wrote them down because it was not a skill. And just like everything, you have to learn it. And I think that she actually talks about that really well in here, saying it's, that people would come to her and they didn't know what to say. So she would say it with them and kind of like draw it out from them. So if you read that, and then I really encourage you to do the exercise on page 89, which is writing a letter to God and then answering it also. And I think you'll see that, if you're someone like me, and you do this exercise, it's really interesting because you're really able to generate it. It just takes some work, some time. So if it's difficult for you, don't worry, just try it. You'll get better at it. I still don't think I'm fantastic at spontaneous prayer, but I'm much better at it. Still not my comfort zone, but it's fine, Okay, another thing that I want to go over is page 90, brachot, blessings. So we have these blessings that are written down, but you can also, so there are certain blessings we say at certain times, but there's also certain blessings that are just for like moments in your life. So what I wanted to first go over, and just for sake of time, I'm not going to use the board, but this blessing formula, right, on page 90 in the text. All brachot, all blessings begin with the 6 words. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe. That's how all blessings begin. But then if you look below, excuse me, blessings that we are performing a mitzvah, a commandment, have 4 added words. Asher kishanu b'mitzotav v'tzivanu, who make us holy through your mitzvot. So, for example, when you say the blessing of lighting candles, you include Asher kishanu b'mitzotav v'tzivanu because that is a commandment. Something we're commanded. Baruch atah Adonai hamotzi lecha min haaretz. We say a blessing over the bread, thanking God. It is not a commandment though, so it doesn't include those. So when you're looking at blessings, that's how you know the difference between just a blessing and a blessing which you are commanded. It includes those extra 4 words of the blessing formula. So page 91 contains a lot of different blessings. You may not have known that there were blessings for all of these things. Seeing wonders of nature, sunrise, shooting star, rainbow, good news upon hearing bad news. There's a blessing we say upon hearing about a death. A blessing when you affix a mezuzah, and blessing before you engage in study of Torah. So I encourage you to take a look through this, read the words, you can read the transliteration, look at what the English of it is. Then if you turn to page 92, and this is something a lot of people start their day this way, right? They open their eyes and they say modeh for a boy, modah for a girl, modeh ani, modah ani, right? Basically saying, I'm grateful before you, eternal one God, for restoring my soul. Great is your faithfulness. And the idea is you wake up thinking of God, say modeh ani, and then below it is the bedtime shema. And you go to bed and God is the last thing on your mind. So it sort of is the idea that frames your day. Throughout the day, there is a, people have that, you're supposed to say 100 blessings throughout the day, which sounds like a lot, but actually because there are so many things that we can say blessings over, including after you go to the bathroom, there's a blessing. So it's very easy to come up to 100 blessings. But, that is, that's a lot. So the idea here is just that when you wake up, God is on your mind, first thing on your mind, and when you go to bed, bedtime Shema, it's the last thing on your mind. Just kind of a way to like frame your day. Page 93 has, all these different ways to build a spiritual practice. And because we didn't really get to talk so much more about kind of personal things about prayer, I really encourage you to also do the reflections on chapter 6 about prayer and obviously the online. There is one more section that I want to go over, but I think we will hold off because I don't think we're going to have enough time. So I'm going to put it aside. It's kind of like the structure of prayer. Each service includes the same kind of basic elements. So I'm going to hold off for that. And I will find a time when it can fit into our lecture. I want to tell you, I will not be here next week. I'm going to the union that I'm part of, the Rabbinical Assembly. They're having a conference, so I'm going next week. So Rabbi Wolf will actually be teaching next week. Going to be learning about Passover, which is coming up in a few weeks. So if you are not able to come next week and you need the link, please email Melissa. I will send you out an email with her email so you remember it. If you need the link, email Melissa because I won't be checking emails to send it to you. But before we depart, if you can just share with me one thing that you learned today or that was really interesting for you for today. I'll just give you like 30 seconds to think about it, and then we'll just go around the room. Something you learned, something interesting to you today. All right. Let's start?
Sure.
Okay.
So I had never seen the Torah that close before.
Oh, awesome.
And so seeing that was really cool. And then also learning the different purposes for having like a couple on rotation.
Oh, awesome. It's a cool experience to see the
Yeah.
Torah up close.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yes.
I didn't know the delineation between kibbah and kavanah, so I thought that was really interesting. Kind of two different ways to access prayer and talk to God.
Great. Thank you.
Mine is actually the exact same.
And it can be the same. It doesn't have to be different.
I never heard of kibbah and kavanah. They used to have like an alternative service here on Saturday mornings. This is probably way before you came here.
Yeah.
And it was called kavanah, but I never knew what that meant. So now I know the difference between the two.
Yeah, and this is kind of like they call it. Keva is called like fix, and kavanah is like intention.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Awesome. Thank you. And I didn't know they used to have that service here. So thank you. Yeah.
Mine was also regarding the Torah scrolls. I've seen plenty of arts with lots of Torah scrolls in them, and I always thought that they had different content. And it's amazing that they all have the same thing, which seems kind of obvious, but in different positions.
Awesome. Great.
So I learned a lot today, but this is my first time in this synagogue, so.
Oh, awesome.
It's really cool.
Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Also, glad we went through that. Wonderful. Oh, good. Oh, great.
Mine was the same thing about the tours
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they have different names on the outside.
Oh, like when it said like for Shabbat or for Rosh Chodesh, the little plates. Mm-hmm. Right. That's what makes it easy when we're up there. Right. So we don't have to memorize which each one is.
Understanding kibbah and kavanah is very interesting.
Great.
Oh, I didn't know that the prayers that Sherika Shana Mitzvah Tavet Zivane had to do with the commandment.
Mm. Oh, great. Awesome.
That's what I.
Same thing. Great.
Kibbah and kavanah, I always thought that conservative Jews are kibbah all the way, that kavanah had something to do with reconstruction or reform, and not, you weren't given the freedom to do what you think you have to do, except during the Amidah,
Oh,
where
interesting.
they allow personal prayer.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So Kevin and Kavanagh, just exploring and contrasting and how they, not only, they're so different from each other, but they're so, they not overlap, but they complement each other.
Absolutely. I think they completely complement each other. Great. Yes. Pima.
I never really noticed or knew the purpose of the eternal flame.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Yeah, I think Kevin and kavanah to me as well, just exploring the value and the purpose of each of those.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't know it illustrated a Torah scroll existed, like a comic book for the Torah. scroll.
Yeah. And definitely take a look at it. When you leave here, it's on your left side.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
I thought all the breastplates all had different. I thought that was like I told you what, because I assumed that they were all different Torah scrolls and they're all the same. I thought that kind of was like telling you what was in it.
Oh, interesting.
So.
Very interesting. Right, it's just decorative.
Same thing with the Torah scrolls. I thought they were all different, and now I know they're all the same, and they're all just like set to what is coming up for readings was, and you know.
It's like we gave away all of our secrets today.
Well, the Kavanagh was fascinating to me because I've never actually even knew that there was such a delineation.
Mm.
I've known the services for many years, but I also have to say that the tzitzit, the gematria for that
Mhm.
was fascinating. But I
Okay.
think I have it just resonated differently for me, so.
Oh, and also, just talking about that, thank you for bringing that up. Also, remember I told you it's, there's 26 times when it's wound around the tzitzit. So we never write the name of God, but I will write the letters of God, not writing God's name. So it's equal to God's actual, the name, the tetragrammaton. So Yud is 10, Hey is 5, Vav is 6, and Hey, and this idea Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, when written together as God's name, is 5, and that makes 26. So it's really all this symbolism woven all around you, all the mitzvot and God. Thank you. I'm so glad you guys got so much out of today. Wonderful. Yes,
That's 26. Is that a meeting or is there more to it? Or is
God's name.
It's 26.
Yeah, God's name equals 26.
That's the knots.
What's the point? Oh, thank
Spinning it
you.
around.
Oh, what is 26? Is 26 have a deeper meaning or?
26 is
Oh,
just
26,
the
26, wraps.
26 wraps
Okay.
equals what the numerical value would be of God's name. So the idea is all the mitzvot are here, God is contained in here. It's just like symbolism, but it's finding meaning, you know.
I was looking for something.
I'm sorry. I don't really have more deeper than
I
that.
was excited about that.
I'm sorry. I'll try to come up with something. Thank you guys all. Have a great night. Have a great time with Rabbi Wolf next week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Feel better. Thank you all.